Hello everyone, welcome back to Cloud Pedagogy. In this session, we will recap all of the storage services mentioned so far, and then we'll try to understand which is the right choice to choose the storage service in different use cases. So by end of this, you should be able to better answer the question, which storage service should I use for some of the more common scenarios. Before going through the scenario, let's recap the storage services, which we have discussed already in the earlier sessions. We'll brainstorm on Amazon EC2 Instant Store, Amazon EBS, Amazon S3, and finally Amazon Elastic File System. Instant Store is ephemeral block storage. This is pre-configured storage that exists on the same physical server that hosts the EC2 instance and cannot be detached from Amazon EC2. You can think of it as a built-in drive for your EC2 instance. Instant Store is generally well suited for temporary storage of information that is constantly changing, such as buffers, caches, and scratch data. It is not meant for data that is persistent or long-lasting. If you need persistent data that can be detached from Amazon EC2 and provide you more management flexibility, such as increasing volume size or creating snapshots, then you should use Amazon EBS. So Amazon EBS is meant for data that changes frequently and needs to persist through instance stops, terminations, or hardware failures. Amazon EBS has two different types of volumes, SSD backed volumes and HDD backed volumes. SSD backed volumes have performance depends on IOPS characteristics as well as ideal for transactional workloads such as databases and boot volumes, whereas HDD backed volumes have performance depends on MB per second. It is ideal for throughput intensive workloads such as big data, data warehouses, log processing, and sequential data I/O. Some of the few important features of Amazon EBS that you need to know when comparing to other services, it is like block storage. You pay for what you provision, means you have to provision storage in advance. EBS volumes are replicated across multiple servers in a single availability zone. Most EBS volumes can only be attached to a single EC2 instance at a time. If your data doesn't change that often, Amazon S3 might be a more cost-effective and scalable storage solution. S3 is ideal for storing static web content and media like backupping or archiving, even for data for analytics, and even can be used to host entire static websites with custom domain names. Here also we will see few important features of Amazon S3 to know more about when comparing to other services. It is object storage. Here also you will pay for what you use, means like you don't have to provision storage in advance. Amazon S3 replicates your objects across multiple availability zones in your region. Amazon S3 is not storage attached to compute. Finally, we'll understand Amazon Elastic File System. In previous sessions, we have already mentioned about Amazon S3 and Amazon EBS. You learned that S3 uses a flat namespace and isn't meant to serve as a standalone file system. You also learned most EBS volumes can only be attached to one EC2 instance at a time. So, if you need a file storage on AWS, which service should you use? That's where EFS comes into picture. For file storage that can mount onto multiple EC2 instances, you can use Amazon Elastic File System, which is Amazon EFS. There is also another option, which is Amazon SFX. But I'm not getting into the details of FSX right now. But we will see some of the few important features of these both services to know about when comparing them to the other services. They both are file storages. You pay for what you use. Again, you don't have to provision storage in advance. Amazon EFS or FSX can be mounted onto multiple EC2 instances. These are the basic elements of the storage services. If you would like to know more details about each service, please go back to the previous sessions of this course. Now it's the time to understand which storage service should I use. When choosing the right storage option for your use case, keep in mind pricing models, durability and availability characteristics, and 3 categories of storage. It's the time to answer the questions, which storage service should I use, for some of the common scenarios. If you're ready, let's start. Question 1. Let's say you are a developer and you plan to build out an application to transcode large media files like videos. You will be using an AWS Lambda function to perform the transcoding. But you need a place to store both the original media files and the transcoded media files. Due to regulations, you need to store these files for at least a year. Which of the storage services that we have talked about in this course should you use? Your time starts now. I'm sorry, time is up. The answer is Amazon S3. Why is S3 the best solution here? Well, first of all, the question says that they are using a Lambda function. Because of that, I'm already ruling out EBS storage because it can be attached to only one EC2 instances. Even if they were using EC2, video files are typically large in size. So you may have to use multiple EBS volumes to store that data, which might not be cost effective in the long run. So EBS is also out. Instant storage is out for the same reason. We are not using EC2 here, but also because we want this data to persist for a year, and you know that instant storage is considered ephemeral. Alright, so S3 is the right answer for this question. So the next question. The next question is, you are an architect for an e-commerce company that wants to run their MySQL database on an EC2 instance. This database needs a storage layer to store their order and customer information. The database will frequently be accessed and updated so that the storage layer needs to respond quickly. It's important that the storage is fast and durable. So, what storage would you like to use in this case? Time up. The answer is Amazon EBS. It seems like we are looking for storage attached to the compute. So why not EC2 instance store? Right? There is also an option, but it's not ideal. Since it's an e-commerce company, their order and customer data is what drives the business, which means the persistence and durability of that data is really important. Using EC2 instance store would definitely give us the speed we are looking for. But what it wouldn't give us is durability needed to store this data for long term. So EBS is the right option in this case. That makes sense, right? Okay, move on to the next question. The next one is that you have a web application that needs to write to disk in order to perform certain calculations. The application will store temporary data during the calculation. The most important aspects of this architecture are speed and cost. So, which storage solution would you use in this scenario? Your countdown starts. Okay, your time is up. The answer is EC2 instance store. You may get a doubt, why not EBS? Sure, once again we are looking for storage attached to compute in this case. The first thing I want to point out is that this is temporary data we are talking about. We are not looking at a huge amount of data, and we also do not necessarily care about the durability of that data. If the instance fails mid-calculation and you want to plan for failure, you can just restart the calculation from scratch. So durability doesn't matter, but cost does. By not using EBS and instead using Instant Store, you may save yourself some costs. This is because Instant Store is included in the overall EC2 instance price. So Instant Store is the best option for this use case. Next question. This is a tricky one, and you might have to think outside of the storage options that we have talked about so far. The question is, let's say you are creating a WordPress site on multiple instances. By default, WordPress stores user uploads on the local file system. Since you want to use multiple instances, you will need to move the WordPress installation and all of the user customizations into a shared storage platform. In this case, which storage option would you use? Yep, your time is up. The answer is Amazon Elastic File System or Amazon EFS. Let's go ahead and talk about the options. Typically, when we talked about shared storage systems that multiple instances can access, think of Amazon S3. Why wouldn't we use that in this case? Well, S3 isn't a file system. It's actually a flat structure for storage objects instead of a hierarchy. Yeah, and also you cannot mount it on multiple instances because S3 has a different underlying type of storage and it's not right ideal for this use case. So by moving the entire WordPress installation directory onto an EFS file system and mounting it onto each of your EC2 instances when they boot, your WordPress site and all of its data is automatically stored on a distributed file system that is not depend on any EC2 instance. I hope you got a better understanding on the different types of storage services, comparing them with these real-time scenarios. When you are ready, please join me in the next lecture. Until then, take care.